Part 1. The Bra Beneath the Seat. I don't really know who I was before it happened. Some days I imagine I was a shadow walking through someone else's idea of a perfect marriage. I wore the ring. I played the role. I told myself I was happy. We were married for 3.5 years. I was the type of man who believed in showing up, not just in presence, but in commitment. Sure, my job in technical sales meant I traveled, but I always came home, to her, to the woman I thought would build a life with me. Her name was Kathy. At least, that's what I called her. But after what happened, I'm not sure she ever really existed in the way I believed. We met at a cookout 5 years ago. She had this presence, elegant, articulate, sharp. I was rough around the edges, not someone you'd expect her to be drawn to. But she was. Or maybe she needed me to be someone she could rescue, mold, control. I don't know anymore. 18 months after we met, we got married. We moved into a decent apartment, made plans for a house. We laughed, kissed, made love like we were still 20. But 3 years in, things began to change. It started subtly. She began coming home later. First, it was work. Then team dinners. Then networking drinks. Eventually, it was more normal for her to not be home than to be. And when she wasn't. I started to feel like furniture in my own life. She said I had no right to question her hours because I traveled for work too. But my trips were short, strategic. I wasn't out dancing with coworkers or ghosting her texts. I was always reachable. I was always trying. What I didn't realize then was that effort doesn't matter if you're playing alone. The first real fracture came in the form of something small, innocent almost, but devastating. A bra. It was wedged beneath the front passenger seat of her car. Pale pink. Lacy. Definitely hers. She favored that particular brand. I found it while helping unload groceries. She didn't even flinch when I carried in the bags, but inside I was shaking. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was nothing. That maybe it slipped out from the laundry basket on a busy morning. That maybe she changed in the car for a gym session she forgot to mention. I told myself everything, except the truth. The truth was, I knew. Deep down in a place I hadn't dared touch before. That place that whispers when you're alone at night. She's lying to you. That evening, I tried to ignore the lump in my chest. I cooked her favorite pasta, set the table with candles, bought wine. I wanted to recreate something between us, to salvage a marriage I didn't realize was already dead. She walked in, glanced at the table, and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, I have a work thing tonight. Just grabbing a quick bite with the team." She showered while I stood in the kitchen staring at the candles. My hands were trembling as I threw everything in the trash. Wine, flowers, food, all of it. She came out of the bathroom in heels and red lipstick and asked, "Aren't you going to eat?" "Never mind, go out with your friends," I said, my voice hollow. She looked at me sideways. "Are you mad?" "No, just..." That was the last real conversation we had as husband and wife. That night something broke, and something else awoke. Part 2. The night I followed her. Something inside me snapped that night, not in an explosive way, not yet. It was quieter, like a window in my soul cracking under pressure. I had lived with doubt for months, but seeing her walk out that door, all dolled up and smiling, pushed me past it. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I watched, I learned. I waited. That night, while she was in the shower, I did something I never thought I would. I slipped my work phone under the driver's seat of her car. I didn't know if it would work, if it would track well enough. But I was tired of being the fool, tired of pretending, tired of swallowing suspicions like they were vitamins I needed to survive. After she left, I tracked the phone. The blinking dot on the map confirmed my worst fear. She wasn't at any fancy business dinner. She was at a bar. One she often mentioned, casually, like it was no big deal. "Just a place near the office," she'd say. I got in my car and drove across town, hands sweating on the steering wheel, heart pounding like a war drum. I parked across the street and sat in the shadows like some broken version of Sherlock Holmes. She was there. Not alone. I watched her laugh, lean in close, and place a hand on a man's chest. His hand found the small of her back. He wasn't her husband. He wasn't wearing a ring. He looked like he had money, confidence, power, the kind of man she could justify cheating with. Then I saw it. The kiss. It wasn't tentative, it wasn't a mistake, it was familiar. They knew each other. They wanted each other. My throat went dry, I felt like vomiting. My legs turned to stone, but my brain was screaming. They left together, arm in arm, got into his car, and drove to a hotel 10 minutes away. I followed, like a ghost in my own life. From across the parking lot, I watched them disappear into the hotel lobby, hands intertwined like lovers on vacation. Something inside me went cold. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I simply shut down. I pounded the steering wheel, not out of anger, out of futility, out of the horrifying realization that the woman I built my life around was not the woman I thought she was. And worse, I hadn't seen it coming. I was the man who missed all the signs, the man who made excuses, the man who bought wine and lit candles while his wife undressed for someone else in hotel rooms. I started driving. I didn't know where to go. The city lights blurred through the windshield. Somewhere along the outskirts, I stopped at a rundown tavern with flickering neon lights. I walked in like a zombie, sat at the bar, and ordered a whiskey. The bartender, a woman with tired eyes and kind hands, took one look at me and said, "You look like someone just punched you in the soul." I smiled barely. Something like that. A man took the stool beside me. Weathered face, flannel shirt, the kind of guy who'd seen things and survived. He asked if I was okay. I told him the truth, or at least part of it. "My wife cheated. I just found out. Caught her tonight." He didn't flinch, just nodded. "You're not alone," he said. "Life kicks hard sometimes. But it's what you do after that counts." His name was Ray. I didn't know it then, but Ray would become a lifeline. Part 3, The Offer in the Darkness. Ray didn't press. He didn't dig for details. He just listened. There was something disarming about his presence, like the kind of strength that comes from having been shattered and slowly stitched back together. Not polished, not perfect, just real. He told me he'd gone through something similar years ago. A wife who fell for someone else, a divorce that blindsided him. "You think it's the end," he said, "but it's just the start. The part where you remember who you are." At some point, I stopped seeing him as a stranger. He felt like a mirror, showing me what survival could look like. After a few more quiet minutes, he offered something I didn't expect. "I've got a trailer," he said, "on a piece of land outside town. Nothing fancy, needs work. But it's quiet. It's yours if you need a place to figure things out. I ain't offering charity, just a way out if you want it." I blinked. A trailer? On some forgotten patch of land? But it sounded like heaven. I didn't even hesitate. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, maybe I do need something like that." Ray handed me a napkin with his address scrawled on it. "Come by tomorrow," he said. "You can see it for yourself. I'll throw in a bottle of real whiskey if you help me clean out the gutters." We both laughed. It was the first time I'd smiled all week. I drove home that night in a daze. Kathy was asleep when I got in, or at least pretending to be. I didn't ask. I didn't care. I sat on the couch in the dark, listening to the silence between us. It was louder than any fight. In the morning, I said nothing. She brewed coffee like it was any other Saturday. I watched her stir in the cream and sugar like clockwork. Same hands that once reached for mine across the table. Same mouth that once whispered promises in the dark. and yet I didn't recognize her anymore. I wondered how long she had been gone, not physically, emotionally, spiritually, soulfully. I didn't ask about the man. I didn't demand the truth. Instead, I began to withdraw. I started taking things, small things, from our apartment. Clothes, books, tools, things that mattered to me. I began placing them in my car in slow, deliberate trips, like someone escaping a war zone without making noise. I went to see Ray that Sunday. His ranch was beautiful in a way the city never could be. Raw, open, honest. The trailer sat on a gentle slope overlooking a grove of scrub oaks. It wasn't luxury, but it was peace. And I hadn't felt that in so long. Inside, it smelled like old cedar and second chances. We shook on a deal. He'd let me rent it for next to nothing if I kept it in shape and stayed out of trouble. I smiled. No trouble here. Ray clapped me on the back. That's what I like to hear. That night, back at the apartment, Kathy asked where I'd been. I looked her in the eye and asked, "Are you cheating on me?" She blinked, stunned, then narrowed her gaze. What? No, why would you say that? I heard, I said quietly. Someone told me. It wasn't true, not technically. No one told me. But her face, the way it twisted into disbelief and then rage, told me everything I needed to know. You're being paranoid, she snapped. You've been distant, obsessed. Maybe you're the one hiding something. That's when I knew. There would be no confession, no apology, no coming clean. Just gaslighting, denial, manipulation. So I stopped hoping for answers. I started planning my escape. Part 4. Slipping away bit by bit. It's strange how endings don't always explode. They dissolve. Quietly. A little more each day, like ink bleeding into water. That's how it was between Kathy and me. The woman I once swore my life to had become a ghost who still took up half our bed. And I was a man rehearsing his exit behind drawn curtains. Every morning she brewed coffee. Every night she stayed out late. The in-between hours were filled with thin conversations, fake smiles, and the kind of silence that builds walls instead of peace. I began to disappear in pieces. One drawer emptied, then another. One book off the shelf, then two. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. That hurt more than anything. I moved my things into the trailer during the afternoons while she was at work. Ray helped me install a secondhand solar panel. We cleaned up the interior, new curtains, a rug, a few plants. It began to feel like something I hadn't felt in months. Mine. A place that wasn't soaked in betrayal. I started spending more time at the bar near Ray's place, not to drink myself numb, but to remember what normal people sounded like. Ray introduced me to a few of his friends. Working class, no BS types. They didn't ask about my past, they just accepted me. That was enough. And somewhere in that quiet, I found my footing again. But still I grieved. Not just for the marriage, but for the man I had been. The husband who believed in forever. The fool who bought flowers when he should have been paying attention. One night, Kathy announced she had a work trip. Another lie, no doubt. She rattled off names, executives, department heads, as if reciting scripture. I interrupted her mid-sentence. Hope you have a great time with your boyfriend. She froze. Excuse me? I said what I said. The fight that followed was loud, venomous, and completely predictable. She played the victim, accused me of losing trust, of not supporting her career, of being distant. I let her rant. What could I say? The truth was useless to someone who had made a home inside their own lies. When she left for the trip, I made my move. I packed what was mine, clothes, laptop, keepsakes. I didn't touch the furniture, didn't take anything shared. I didn't want memories. I didn't want revenge. I wanted out. I left a note on the kitchen table, just a few words scribbled in black ink. I hope it was worth it. Next to it, I placed my wedding ring. Not out of spite, out of finality. Driving away from that apartment was the strangest blend of grief and freedom I'd ever felt. Like cutting off a gangrenous limb. You don't celebrate, but you survive. The trailer was waiting for me. Ray had set it up near the edge of the woods. I stepped inside, took a deep breath, and felt something unfamiliar spread across my chest. Relief. No more lies, no more pretending. Just air. Quiet. And me. Part 5, The Ghost Who Found Me Again. For a while, it was silence. No texts, no missed calls, no "where are you" or "please talk to me." Just air. It was as if Kathy vanished from the face of the earth, and in her place, the version of myself I had abandoned began to return. I woke up with the sun, not alarms. I ran trails, not errands. I ate when I was hungry, not when someone was watching. In Ray's trailer, surrounded by trees and sky, I began to feel human again. Some nights I drank with Ray and his friends, laughing at dumb stories about flat tires and wild exes. Other nights, I sat alone by the campfire, letting the silence tell me what I'd been too afraid to admit before, that I'd built my marriage on illusions and good intentions. That love doesn't always end with betrayal. It just slips away when you stop holding on. But freedom has a strange way of testing you. Because just when I began to feel whole again, she found me. It happened on a random Sunday afternoon. I was leaving the coffee shop in town, my laptop in one hand, a bag of groceries in the other. I didn't see her at first. But then... "Paul!" I froze. The voice pulled me back like a rope around my throat. I turned, and there she was. Kathy. Waving from across the street like we were old friends meeting by accident. Except nothing about it felt accidental. She jogged toward me, hair in a ponytail, wearing the exact kind of shorts and tank top she knew I used to love. She looked deliberate, not casual, staged. She smiled. "You look good." I said nothing. "Can we talk?" she asked. I should have walked away. I should have told her to disappear again, permanently. But some ghost of civility, some echo of the man I used to be, made me nod. We sat on a bench near the old general store, and she launched into it right away. The apology, the regrets, the "it meant nothing, and I was lost, and I hate who I became." She cried, real tears, but even as they fell, I couldn't trust them. I watched her like a stranger. I didn't feel anger anymore, just distance, just clarity. "You hurt me," I said. "You didn't just cheat. You made me feel like I was nothing." Her mouth trembled. "I know. And I'll never forgive myself for that. But I need you to know I've changed. I left the company. AP was transferred. I told his fiancée everything. It blew up. I walked away." "I've been looking for you," she added. "I didn't hire a PI or anything. I just ran into Stacy. She let something slip. I came out here hoping I'd find you." I laughed once, bitterly. "And what? We'd run into each other at the coffee shop and fall back in love?" She looked down. I didn't know what I expected, just that I had to try. I looked out across the hills, toward the horizon I'd finally learned to trust. "Kathy, you don't get to undo it. You don't get to rewrite what happened." "But I still love you," she whispered. "Doesn't that mean anything?" I paused. For a moment, I let myself feel the weight of her words. Then I said, "No, it doesn't." She begged. She cried harder. She asked to come back to the trailer, to talk more, to see what could still be saved. I refused. Before she left, she asked me one last question. "If I had been the one cheated on, would you have stayed?" I looked at her. Maybe. If we'd gotten counseling. If there was honesty. But that's not what happened, is it? She shook her head, tears streaming. And then she was gone. Part 6, her last offer, my final goodbye. She disappeared again after that day, but this time it didn't haunt me. Her absence didn't ache. It felt like a release, like a final exhale after years of holding my breath. I went back to my life in the trailer, deeper into the quiet. I ran the trails at sunrise, cooked simple meals, tended to the little space I now called home. Ray dropped by occasionally with tools, or just a six-pack and some conversation. No pressure, no questions. A week passed, then another, and then the email. Long, rambling, desperate. She wrote how she couldn't stop thinking about me, how she wanted to try again, that she'd accepted a job offer in another state and wanted me to come with her, start fresh, leave all the pain behind. She said she was running out of time before her move. I read every word, and for a moment I almost felt the pull, not because I wanted her back, but because part of me still remembered how much I once did. But I didn't answer, not for days. When I finally replied, it was short. I'm happy. I'm not looking back. You made your bed, Kathy. I wish you well. Please don't contact me again. I didn't give her my new number. I didn't invite her into the sanctuary I'd built. She'd had her chance, and she buried it. There's a kind of peace that comes not from winning, but from letting go of the war altogether. It didn't happen overnight. Some days I still felt the sting, like phantom pain from a limb no longer there. But over time, the ache dulled. The images stopped replaying. The guilt dissolved. The fear disappeared. I started seeing someone casually, a woman from town, smart, grounded, nothing like Kathy. One day, she called me her mountain man when and I laughed harder than I had in years. We go slow, no promises, just presence. And that's more than enough. I don't believe in perfect closure. Life doesn't tie itself in neat little bows. But I believe in healing. I believe in choosing yourself when no one else does. I believe in walking away when staying would break you beyond repair. So if you're reading this and sitting in the dark like I once was, wondering if you'll ever breathe freely again, let me be proof. You will. You don't have to stay with someone who treats you like an option. You don't owe your loyalty to betrayal. You're allowed to walk away without a dramatic exit, without a breakdown, without needing them to understand. You're allowed to save yourself. And if they come back, begging, crying, promising change, you're allowed to say no and mean it.